So today we're going to talk about how to make $50,000 on a deal where the seller doesn't have title. Now, this is the fourth episode of a four-part series called Deal or No Deal. And this one's really, really interesting because I want to talk about perspective, right? And how to make more money being a more mature investor and patient investor, a wise investor versus your gut reaction. But before I jump in today's show, if you have not been over to nextlevelwholesaling.com, head on over there and take the Next Level Wholesaling assessment. If you've always wondered how to create a more profitable business in which you can make more money in less more time, have more freedom, get off that treadmill, and launch yourself into the stratosphere, go to nextlevelwholesaling.com and take the Next Level Wholesaling assessment. It'll take you 5 minutes. It'll spit out a score for you, and it will be blatantly obvious really what your next step is to really get to that next level in your wholesaling business. So go to nextlevelwholesaling.com. All right, so let's talk about the fourth installment of Deal or No Deal. So a seller calls us off of a postcard, and this postcard is at least 3 years old. Man, oh man, I love it. It's like found money that you just planted and then just pays you years later that you completely forgotten about. I just love those postcards, right? Because they sit in a drawer until one day they say, call me, call me, call me. When a seller calls you on one of those, you know that they've been thinking about talking to you for a while. And when they think about it and then they call you, life is good because it's a well thought out decision. And they usually know that you are their best option. And that's usually when you're going to make the most money. So, seller of a property or the occupant of a property calls us and says, hey, my mom died and I need to sell this house. I have a brother, but I don't know how to do the probate thing. It's over my head and I don't have the money to do it. So it's really interesting because the seller is a real high level alcoholic, right? So drunk one day, sober the next. Can't get a hold of him for 2 weeks, right? Totally lucid the next. So we call up the brother and we're like, hey, look, your brother wants to sell to us, like, what do we, but we can't get a hold of him. He's on and off. He's like, look, I'm here to support you. I want him to sell the house. It's his house, but I'll cooperate with the probate process, but getting my brother to just like show up, on his day is going to be just up to you. So if you can handle it, I'll cooperate. Okay. So now our team says, okay, we've got the other brother on board because if you do a probate and there's multiple, heirs, you got to have both people on board. So if you're going to start something like that and invest any real time or money, you got to make sure you get everybody on board. So that was the first step. So finally, we call up the probate thing. And in California, the probate process takes a little bit longer than in other places. And we talk to the probate attorney and it's like, hey, it's going to be 6 months. And because it's going to be long, we usually like to have our attorneys get paid on the back end. But our attorney says, hey, listen, you're going to have to pay me $1,500 up front. And the seller doesn't have it. And we can't stick it on the back end. I usually have most of my probate people, they allow me to pay it on the back end. But the interesting thing is I'm like, okay, do I have a lot of confidence that this seller is going to cooperate through the process because their drinking problem is extreme, right? Like, yes, I want to do the deal. I'm going to sign the paperwork today and then goes for 2 weeks, right? Like, oh, wait a minute. You forgot to initial the first page, right? We can't get a hold of them for 2 weeks. And so we've got a tough situation. So do we want to lay out the $1,500 on this deal? Well, let me tell you the numbers. Our purchase price is $300,000. This house has an ARV around $450,000. So we think that we can wholesale it for a $40,000 to $50,000 profit, $340,000 to $350,000, decent area. We got to lay out $1,500 for a seller who signed the paperwork. And I'm not worried about him backing out. I'm just worried about him cooperating during the probate process because paperwork needs to be signed. They need to show up. They need to get out of bed. Things happen. So this is a 6-month process that you're going to have to be married to this person. So do you do the deal? So let's take a time out. What are some risks here, right? The risks are you lay out this $1,500, seller goes dark. There's also maybe another heir that you don't know about. Maybe there's a judgment against the property you don't know about. And you're like, is this worth my time? What if I lose? This is where fear creeps in. What if I lose my $1,500? What if I lose my time? Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I want to do that. Well, I'll tell you what. I love to look and I love to bat. This is something one of my mentors taught me. He says, Todd, what you have to do is your activities, don't look at them as isolation, right? You have to step out and step away from the deal and look at the cluster of deals in basically collaboration with one another. And so I say, okay, listen, how many of these deals do we do a year where we're going to lay out money for something like this? And what is the average cost of doing something like this? Well, in my world, I'll invest a little money sometimes in a property before I own it to get it clean and looking better. I'll invest money in probates like I've talked about here. I always like to try to put it on the back end, but if I can't, sometimes I'll invest money up front. But think about it. You also invest money in marketing that you may or may not get back. So I take a look and I say, okay, if I add all of these together, what is the return on that money? So then I was like, well, I'm definitely going to come out ahead. I go, what about this? What if I do 3 of these probate deals a year and I spend $1,500 up front to get this probate done? And out of the 3, only one closed. Only one closed, right? Well, the average profit on these is $40,000 to $50,000, right? And let's say this guy flakes out and I lose my $1,500. And I decide, I'm not going to sue him. I don't want to deal with that. Who the heck wants to deal with that crap? I'm just going to let it go. I lose my $1,500. Second person, same thing. Let's say I put in my $1,500. It's a title problem. I don't want to sue the guy. I just want to let him out, right? I lose my $1,500 again. Oh no, I've lost $3,000. All right, third deal comes along. I invest another $1,500. I'm a little scared this time, but you know what? I'm like, no, one of these is going to pop. I do it. Now, collectively, I've invested $4,500 in legal fees across 3 properties. I lost 2, but I get the 1. And I make $50,000. So that's $4,500. And I make $50,000. Now, I'm no mathematician. I was a C student in college, but I tell you what, that is a pretty good return, right? $4,500 to make $50,000. I use this formula in my business, by the way, across multiple things. I use it because I actually get a house inspection every deal I do, and I don't even need that inspection 8 out of 10 deals. But on the 2 out of 10, where I have to get a reduction, I'm able to negotiate $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 reductions on properties where I normally would have lost the deal. And those are the things that save you. So here's my recommendation. Number 1, we're going to do the deal. 2, I recommend if you run across this, you do the deal. If you kind of run the numbers like that and the seller seems reasonable and you don't know with 100% certainty that you are going to lose it, right? Don't be stupid. But take calculated risks, right? I love, and I learned this from the late Sam Zell, that you're always looking for a disproportionate amount of risk with return, right? You don't want the risk-return ratio to be equal. You want a disproportionate amount of risk. Now, I know a lot of people who take a disproportionate amount of risk the wrong way. Well, they'll risk $50,000 to make 10, which is like the stupidest thing I've ever heard, right? You want to risk $5,000 to make 50, right? You want to risk $25,000 to make 500. And so you want a small downside with a big, big, big upside. And I like these numbers. I like this deal. So yeah, you know what? We're going to do this deal. And if you're in the situation, only you can decide if you're going to do it. But I'd love to hear from you. So if you're watching this on YouTube, deal or no deal? Do you do the deal or do you don't do the deal? If you're listening to the podcast, love to hear from you. Talk about the deal. You can email us at support@nolimitsrealestate.investing.com. Don't forget to head over to our website, nextlevelwholesaling.com. Take that assessment, and I will talk to you on the next episode.